just a second, it was as if I were standing next to a corpse, with no expression whatsoever or the faintest hint of life in its eyes. And then it smiled. For the first time in my life, I watched the supernatural reveal itself right in front of me. The smile stretched too far. It wasn't just a big smile, it was an impossible smile. The closed mouth extended almost all the way to the earlobes on both sides of his head. My eyes grew wide and my heart was pounding in my ears. Almost instantly, as if it realized it had overstepped the bounds of normal human behavior, the smile vanished and the face returned to its previous, dead expression. I didn't know what to say, or what to do. I felt that commenting on the impossible smile would only encourage it to come back, and that was the last thing I wanted. There was only one thing I was sure of. I wasn't standing next to a human. I stood next to an it, not a he. I just reverted to doing what I was already going to do, because that's all I could think of. Wordlessly, I walked past him, unlocked the doors, and went inside, heading quickly to the counter at the front of the store. As if the short wall and cash register would somehow protect me from whatever was happening. When I reached the cash register and turned around, I saw the store remained empty. But the man, or thing, or whatever it was, still stood outside, still looking in through the glass doors. For the longest time it stood motionless, keeping its stare on me. I stared back, unable to move, caught completely off guard on what to do in this situation. And then it turned and walked off, back into the parking lot. I watched as it walked across the spot where Sharice's car was usually parked, and into the thick clump of trees nearby. I continued to stand there, unable to understand what had happened, or how fear had somehow radiated from it. It wasn't just because of its disturbing appearance and freakish expressions. I had felt the fear even before I had seen its face, or the unnerving, too wide smile. And now, even after it was gone, I was afraid. For the next several hours, I anxiously looked up whenever I saw someone approaching the doors. Each time, it was just another customer, bundled up in a heavy coat and ready to make a quick, wordless purchase before heading back into the night. I didn't know what to do, or if I should tell anyone about what had happened. Would they just think I was crazy? I glanced at the security camera pointed at the front door and shook my head. The store cameras are a joke. None of them still work. They leave them up for appearance's sake, so people at least think they're being recorded, but the store I work for is part of a dying brand. The money has long since dried up, as we're outperformed by the newer, bigger stores. But somehow the remaining stores limp on, eking out profits too small to spare the expense of having our security cameras repaired, which left me with no way to prove what I had seen. It wasn't until about 2 a.m. that I saw it again. I was restocking the medicine on the shelf nearest the counter, glancing over towards the doors every couple of minutes. The next time I looked, it was standing there, in front of the glass doors, just staring at me. I jumped backwards, tripping over the basket holding the new meds and falling on my butt, bottles of pain relievers clattering and rolling all across the floor. I scrambled back to my feet as I heard the door chime. As soon as my head popped over the aisle, I saw the doors were still closed. That alone was odd, because if someone entered the store, the doors usually took a few seconds to close, and I should have seen at least some movement to show they were closing. But they remained stone still, with the figure outside now gone. Was he inside the store now? I stood motionless and strained my senses for any trace of movement. For a few seconds, there was nothing. Then I heard a soft slapping sound, like flesh on the tile floor. Like someone was crawling around on their hands and feet. I ran behind the counter again, looking for anything I could use as a weapon. There was nothing. My best bet was to call the police, but how long would that take? The thing was here now. The slapping sounds increased in speed and intensity, as I heard it crawling along the furthest parts of the store, almost as fast as a person could run standing up. I grabbed a magazine and rolled it up in my hand, while a small, isolated part of my brain laughed at how utterly useless that was. It just felt better to have something in my hand, a small extension that I could keep between myself and this thing. It was a tiny comfort psychologically, even if it wasn't going to help physically. The fleshy, slapping sounds increased even further in speed, as whatever it was came to the very last aisle. I braced myself for whatever was about to appear, but all the sound suddenly stopped. He was still there. It was still there. Just behind the last aisle. The store grew supernaturally quiet. I couldn't even hear the ticking of the clock behind me. Then, in slow motion, like a nightmare coming to life, the head came into view. It wasn't low to the ground, like someone on all fours. It was near the top of the aisle, and rising ever higher. It was wearing the same wide-brimmed hat as before, but the face was almost totally unrecognizable. The eyes were wide open, staring. At first, I thought they were entirely white, until I spotted the black pin-prick pupils in the center of each. The smile was back, this time a full-blown grin with the lips pulled back and teeth exposed. They were entirely normal-looking human teeth, but there are far too many of them, stretching from ear to ear at a hideous parody of a smile. I saw as it slowly came around the corner, that it was still rising from being on all fours, but its neck had stretched out to an infeasible length, putting its head near the ceiling. The limbs, too, were growing, stretching out longer with each passing second, and then it was as if my body took over, when my brain no longer knew what to do. My primal instinct to survive kicked in, and I was turning, sprinting, down the store. Not towards the front doors, which were still too close to the thing, but to the walk-in refrigerator on the far right side, where we keep all the cold drinks in storage. The door itself was thick, heavy and solid, but the room it led into was far from secure. The entire wall on one side was made of easily opened glass doors, with only the trays of drinks between the inside and out. But I didn't know where else to go. It was between me and the exit. I could hear the thing scrambling around on the floor outside the walk-in, so I slammed the door and locked it from the inside. Then I ran down the refrigerated aisle until I reached the small walk-in freezer in the very back. I paused. The freezer had a thick metal door every bit as solid as the walk-in fridge, and it had no glass walls, or even windows. It undoubtedly looked more secure and would hide me better. But I also knew that without my coat, I wouldn't be able to stay in there for very long. It also didn't lock from the inside, like the walk-in door could, so it really wasn't any safer. I stood by the freezer door, shaking hand on the lever, ready to open it and run inside at the first hint that something else would enter the walk-in. I waited, trembling as much from fear as the cold, my vision occasionally slightly obscured from my breath turning into condensation in the air. After what seemed like hours, I heard the front door chime again. Was that the thing leaving? Or did someone new come in? A few moments later, I heard a male voice call out, "Hello? Is anyone here?" I relaxed just a little. If the thing was still out there, this new person would have seen it. I walked over to the trays of soda and peered between them, through the glass door and out into the store. It seemed empty, save for one short, bulky person wandering up to the counter. With shaky legs, I walked towards the door and unlatched it. I held onto it at first, for fear it would suddenly be pulled open by a great force, and the thing would be standing there. But nothing happened, except for the man calling out for service one more time. "Hey, I need a pack of cigarettes. Is anyone here?" I slowly pulled the walk-in door open, to see no unearthly terrors waiting on the other side. The store seemed as normal as it ever had. I slowly walked out, and turned towards the counter. "Oh, there you are," the stout, Hispanic-looking man exclaimed. "Yeah, can I get, you okay, pal?" I looked at the concern written across his face. "Yeah." My voice came out in almost a whisper, raspy and a little shaky. "You're as pale as a ghost," he laughed nervously. "You sure you're okay?" I continued my trek to the front of the store, quietly passing him and entering behind the counter. "Yeah," I said again, a little more strength in my voice this time. "What brand did you want?" He told me, and as I was handing them over, he said, "Must be working too many overnights, pal? Make sure you get a good night's rest when you can." His smile faded quickly when I didn't return it, and he quickly pocketed the pack and left the store. As he left, I saw the glowing red numbers on the clock above the slowly closing exit doors read 4:08 a.m. I was alone in the store again, or so I hoped. An hour and a half later, Patrick the manager came in for his shift, and allowed me to clock out a bit early when I told him I didn't feel well. He's a nice guy, we've never had any problems, but there's no way I could tell him what happened. I didn't think there was a way to tell anyone what happened. I walked out to my car, eyes darting everywhere, but I saw nothing out of the ordinary. Quickly, I unlocked my trusty old Honda's driver's side door and slid behind the wheel, before whirling to check the back seat, just in case. A few empty protein packets on the back seat floor were all that lay behind me. I slowly turned and drew a deep breath, closing my eyes, forcing myself to be calmer. I had felt helpless, almost hopeless, for most of the night, a part of me believing that I wouldn't see the morning sun again. Now that it was here, I felt my resolve and strength gently rise with it. I didn't know what exactly had happened, but I was determined to never feel that way again. Many people would have perhaps quit this job by this point. But I didn't want to. And it wasn't out of bravery. Or because I needed minimum wage money so desperately that I was willing to face an unspeakable horror. But it was because of that unspeakable horror that I knew I had to stay. For the rest of my life, I knew, I would be looking over my shoulder, fearing the dark. I could run, but I would never really stop running, at least not in my mind. I wanted to face this thing head on. I was a criminal justice major, I had always wanted to defeat evil. I had to win, so I could be free. I did not want to ever feel the same way I had a few hours earlier, and it was up to me, and me alone, to take steps to ensure that. I had never before felt my world shaken like this. I had felt a sense of confidence in almost everything I did. And I was ready to reclaim that feeling by defeating what made me afraid. First things first, I thought. I would need to bring my Glock 19 into work for my next shift. The small but powerful handgun would be easy to conceal. Patrick would never agree to an employee bringing a gun inside the store, but fortunately he usually isn't even working when I come in, and it's not like Charissa gives me pat-downs each shift to make sure I don't have weapons. Maybe I'll never need it. I hope I won't, I thought. But one thing I do know for sure, I won't be running next time. If I saw the thing again, I'd hold it at gunpoint, while recording it with my phone. Once I had all the evidence I needed, I'd call the police and let them look at it. That was plan A. But if the thing rushed me, well, a disgusting, distorted dead monster is pretty good evidence as well. Hey, maybe I'll even get famous from this. I could figure out a way to make money from it. I hope the thing does show up again tonight. This could turn out to be a good thing in the long run. The thoughts comforted me, increasing my resolve to actually return for my shift that night. I slept like a log as soon as I got home. The adrenaline that had pumped through me earlier had drained me thoroughly. Upon waking to the alarm on my phone that evening, I was pleased to find the confidence was still there. By the time I was driving back to the store for my next overnight shift, I felt ready. Powerful even. Nothing was going to stop me. But as I pulled up into the employee parking area, I felt that earlier sense of confidence and bravery drain right back out of me, as the setting of the sun seemed to take with it the same resolve and strength it had brought me that morning. My gut had turned into a cold, hollow void. I was feeling less like a warrior and very much like a scared little kid with a gun. As I got out of the car, I tucked the gun into the back of my pants and made sure my shirt covered it. As I approached the double glass doors, both of them appearing pale orange in the dying light, I realized my heart was not only pounding because of what I feared I might have to face at night, but also that I would be caught bringing a gun into the store. To my relief, Charissa was busy restocking in the walk-in when I entered, so I had a few minutes before she came back out. There were no customers in the store. I went behind the counter and pulled the gun out. I hit it AG.